everyone. So today we are going to continue to discuss different ways of overcoming insomnia. This is the third video on this topic. Hopefully you have been able to engage with the advice that was offered in the previous two videos. I promised in those previous videos that whatever was discussed there was not everything that there was available to anyone who struggles with insomnia. I hope that you were able to experience some improvement if you practiced things in those two videos. If you haven't seen them yet, you are welcome to check them out. They are linked down below. Today we are going to talk more about how to apply cognitive behavioral therapy to negative thoughts that we have automatically after we have experienced insomnia for a while when we go to bed. Because what happens is that if we are not able to fall asleep for a long time, for many consecutive nights, our brain starts associating our bedroom and the place, just the mere place where we sleep, the bed, with not being able to sleep. And what we want to do is we want to break that association. We want to help our brain to unlearn that association. So this is why in this video we're going to discuss 3 ways of how we can help our brain to break that association between our bedroom and our bed where we sleep and not being able to fall asleep. And there will be one more thing also that I will ask you to do if you want to improve your sleep. During this 6-week challenge, I will ask you to start tracking how you sleep, because for the next week, when we will have the next video, you will be able to use the data that you will collect this week to do another step in order to be able to. So one more time, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. If you don't know what is cognitive behavioral therapy, you may want to check out my video about cognitive behavioral therapy, which is linked down below. The main idea of the cognitive behavioral therapy is that we can change how we feel by changing our thoughts and by changing our actions. The first thing that we will discuss is, I'm looking at my notes here. So the first thing is that we want to be able to target any negative thoughts that we have when we go to bed. So when we look at the bed, when we lay in bed and try to fall asleep, nobody falls asleep just like that immediately. It takes a little time to fall asleep, even for people who sleep very well. So we want to be able to challenge negative thoughts that occur automatically, perhaps in us, in our mind, when we look at the bed, when we go to bed, and when we lay in bed before we are able to fall asleep. So suppose my negative thought is, oh no, not another sleepless night. So I'm just going to bed and I'm already so much used to not being able to fall asleep that I think, oh no, not another sleepless night. So as I become aware of that thought, I think of a positive replacement for it. So on most of the nights, most of people eventually fall asleep, even if it's just going to be for 15 minutes. So instead of thinking, oh no, not another sleepless night, I challenge that thought and I think it's not going to be actually a sleepless night. I will fall asleep eventually. Another example. Suppose I'm laying in bed and I'm just not sure, am I going to be able to fall asleep? And I start worrying about falling asleep. And so interestingly enough, being worried about being able to fall asleep is one of the major reasons why people are not able to fall asleep. So suppose I'm doing that and I have this thought in my mind, I will not sleep for the rest of the night and I will be very tired the next day. So that's a negative thought. So then I challenge it with a positive thought that I want to replace that negative thought with. And that positive thought is, I don't know that I'm not going to be able to fall asleep for the rest of the night. I might just be able to. So I don't know for sure that that's true. and I can tell myself most nights I sleep at least 4 hours and I'm still able to get through the next day. Suppose that there is another thought, almost catastrophizing thought that I'm having. Insomnia is killing me. So a replacement thought for that might be that I am working on improving my sleep. My sleep is getting better. So instead of thinking this negative thought, insomnia is killing me, well, it's not actually killing me. And I am working on improving my sleep, and my sleep is getting better. The second thing that we can do to be able to make a more positive association in our brain between just the mere scene of our bed and the bedroom and us being able to fall asleep is when we actually go to bed and we try to fall asleep, we may want to practice either deep breathing, or something that works very well for many people is progressive muscle relaxation. So progressive muscle relaxation is basically we tell our body, so we just lay down and we go through groups of muscles and we cue our muscles, we tell them to relax. Right? Just like I'm able to cue my fingers to move, I can tell I'm going to relax my hand now. And what happens, my hand is relaxing. In some guided progressive muscle relaxation tapes, you might hear cues being given from the top of our head all the way to our feet, or you can go from your feet to the top of your head. You can decide in advance in what order you want to do this, and it can be just as simple as saying, I'm going to relax my feet. My feet are relaxing. My feet are relaxed. And you just keep going and you say these 3 sentences to each part of your body. So that was the second thing. Do you still remember what was the first thing? The first thing was challenging negative thoughts. So if I'm going to bed and I have a negative thought, I think of a positive replacement for it. Do you still remember what was the second thing? The second thing is progressive muscle relaxation. I deliberately cue my muscles to relax as I'm falling asleep in bed. And of course, deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. So it's basically breathing with my belly. Not with my chest, but actually with the diaphragm, making sure that the diaphragm is being stretched when we breathe. That is very relaxing to our body. That is very helpful for falling asleep. So we can take a few of those deep breaths as well when we do progressive muscle relaxation. Okay, so we covered 2 things. Did you remember how many things I promised you to discuss today in order to be able to break the link between the image of the bed and the bedroom and the insomnia? There were 3 things. Yes, you're right. If you remember 3 things, then yes, you remember that correctly. So there's one more thing to discuss. That thing is that we want to avoid laying in bed and not being able to fall asleep. So if you are not able to fall asleep for about 20 minutes, and please don't look at the clock, don't check the time, because that's not helpful. If more or less you think in your mind that it's been about 20 minutes since I've been laying in bed and I'm still not asleep, then get out of bed, because you don't want your brain to continue making a connection between you not being able to fall asleep and you laying in bed. So you get out of bed and you do some relaxing activity. You prepare before you go to bed. You try to be ready. If you're not able to fall asleep, you have a book ready that you might be able to read. You make yourself a cup of tea, nothing caffeinated. Remember, that was in the first video. And no electronic devices also. So no coffee and no electronic devices. But you can read a book. You can maybe do some coloring. That's also very relaxing. You can decide whether or not you want to listen to some music, because that kind of stimulates your senses. So for some people that can be calming, and for others not so much. So just think about something that you might be able to do, or you may do some writing, but something that is not going to wake you up, something that's not going to make your brain more agitated and stimulate your senses, or stimulate your mind to think a lot. And then you only go to bed when you feel sleepy tired. So when you have this sensation, I'm kind of feeling sleepy tired, now I'm going to go to bed. When you do not feel sleepy tired, you continue to engage with this activity, whether it is reading or journaling or anything else that you have prepared for yourself to do. Okay, so that was the third thing. Let us see, do you still remember the first thing? We challenge negative thoughts that we have when we go to bed or when we lay in bed. Do you still remember the second thing? The second thing is progressive muscle relaxation. We cue our muscles to relax. And we breathe deeply for at least few times. Maybe not for the whole duration of the progressive muscle relaxation, but at least a few deep breaths would be helpful. And the third thing, do you remember what that was? I've just discussed it, but what was it? You do not stay in bed for more than 20 minutes if you're not able to fall asleep, and you only go to bed when you feel sleepy, tired. So those three things are going to help you to break this fusion that may have occurred in your brain between laying in bed and being in the bedroom and not being able to fall asleep. And likewise, during the day, don't lay in bed to do other things. Like, don't read in bed, don't work on your laptop in bed, because you want your brain to you want to form this association, a new association in your brain that when I go to bed, I sleep. So you don't use your bed for activities other than sleep and intimacy. So that's the recommendation. All right, we need to look what's next. So I also mentioned that I will be asking you to start tracking how you sleep. I have linked down below Excel spreadsheet where you can start tracking how you sleep. So basically what would be helpful that you would track for at least 1 week before you will be able to take the next step is when you go to bed, when you actually physically lay into the bed. How long approximately it takes you before you fall asleep. And so again, it's not recommended that you look at the watch because that can interfere with your sleep, just approximately. You can even do it up until 15 minutes. Was it 15 minutes? Was it 30 minutes? You will usually know whether it was closer to 15 or closer to the 30 minutes. So you want to keep track of when you go to bed, how long it took you to fall asleep, how many times during the night you woke up, and what was the total time that you were awake during the night. So for example, if you woke up twice during the night, what was the total time during those 2 awakenings that you were actually awake? In the morning when you wake up, you will be able to estimate that. You do not have to write this down when you're actually at night, when you sleep, when you're trying to sleep. In the morning when you wake up, you will be able to write this down. So the next thing that would be helpful to write down is what was the time when you woke up. So if you have an alarm clock, you'll probably know when you woke up. And then the last piece of information that you'll need is how long did you stay in bed after you woke up and physically got out of bed. So the idea of why you want to track all of those things, and you don't have to memorize all of those, they're on that spreadsheet that is linked down below. You'll be able to see them, so I'm not repeating them again. The main idea of why you want to track all of that information is because we want to know sleep effectiveness. So the sleep effectiveness is during the period of time. So suppose you went to bed at 11:15 and you got out of bed at 7:30. So you physically went to bed at 11:15 and you got out of bed at 7:30. So that would be a total of 8 hours 15 minutes that you have tried to be asleep. Out of those 8 hours 15 minutes that you tried to be asleep, what is the time that you were actually asleep? So if you track all of that information, you'll be able to know what was the time that you were actually asleep. So suppose that out of all of that time, you were actually asleep for, say, 5 hours 15 minutes. So you were trying to be asleep for 8 hours 15 minutes, but you actually slept 5 hours 15 minutes. So then your sleep effectiveness will be 5 hours 15 minutes of 5.25 hours divided by 8 hours 15 minutes, so by 8.25, which is about 60-something%. right? So how the duration of time that you actually were asleep divided by the duration of time that you were trying to be asleep, that's your sleep effectiveness. And the idea is that we want to bring your sleep effectiveness to 90% or higher. We are not going to do this week, but next week I'll tell you what to do to bring your sleep effectiveness to 90% or higher. Okay, so I have told you everything I wanted to tell you today. So let's just summarize. So during this week, if you want to improve your sleep, what you want to do is to try to break the association between you thinking about being in bed or being in the bedroom and you thinking that you will not be able to sleep. You want to break that. How do you break that? You challenge negative thoughts about your sleep. You do progressive muscle relaxation, and you do not stay in bed for more than 20 minutes if you're not able to sleep. So you only try to stay in bed for sleep and intimacy. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you start tracking how well you've been sleeping for 1 week. Once you're done with that, there will be another video, and I'm excited to tell you the next step, because that tends to be the most effective one, but also the hardest one to accomplish. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to this channel. Please support my work. If you think that this is good content, by all means, please support it. Put a like underneath this video. Write a comment. I'm curious to hear, how was the second week? Did you do the second week, and was it difficult for you to not use electronic devices for 2 hours before you go to bed? Because it surely was not easy for me, especially the first day I tried it. I'm following with you on this journey. So that's it. Subscribe, put a thumbs up, and hit this bell. If you hit the bell, then you'll get a notification when the next video comes out. And if you're doing this cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, if you're doing this program with me, then you probably want to know when the next video comes out. So if you hit this button that looks like a bell, you'll get a notification when I post a new video. All right, have a nice day, and I'll see you again, hopefully through the YouTube channel. Bye.